Guys podcast, JC Shurburtt here. If you guys are tuning in on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, this is a dress rehearsal. But we figured we'd give you guys a little bit of a taste. We needed to get a podcast out anyway. This will be available, obviously, on Spotify, on iTunes, on anything else, any other type of podcast where it's normally been, and it's going to stay there. So if you can't catch Phil and I'm going to tell you who Phil is in a second. I'm sure you see him Monday through Friday from 11 to 1 Eastern. You can always still get it on the podcast and all of that. I want to thank our advertisers really quick. Heritage Digital, Cindy Searfoss, Realtor from Caldwell Banker Kane. Also, iHelp. We'll have a question or two from the iHelp Consulting mailbag. Folks, this is a dress rehearsal, so we don't have all the ads ready to go, but did want to always shout them out. And we got some more advertisers coming on board. But first, I want to introduce somebody very special, somebody I've known for 20 years. I have always thought that this would be something he was good at. Lo and behold, he is. The new co-host and producer of the Inside the Gamecocks podcast, Inside the Gamecocks, the show. I'm sorry, Phil Mullinax. Phil, how are you doing today, bud?
Doing well, JC. How about you, man?
Really, really good. Glad folks can hear your voice. I know folks have been following you on Twitter. You've done a tremendous job here with the graphics and all of that. I'm sure people are fired up to see that. Phil, big weekend for the Gamecocks recruiting-wise.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Picked up a couple of 4 stars, the top-rated recruit in the whole program, I think. History for Shane Beamer for sure. So we're looking forward to keeping that momentum going, man.
Yeah, definitely. You got Marquis Anderson from Dorman. And I'll take everybody back through this. Okay, so the talk going into the weekend, Phil, was can the Gamecocks go 4 for 4? You had 2 guys, Big Tree Babalade, and I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'm not going to try to. I'm not going to butcher it. 4-star offensive tackle from DC, looked like he was going to commit, and then he puts his decision off. Same with 4-star receiver Carmelo Taylor from Roanoke, Virginia. I'll talk about those guys, especially Babalade, here in a second. So, in recruiting, obviously, I think, Phil, you got to recruit the state first. I think at South Carolina, if you don't get your share of in-state talent, you're going to have a hard time building a winner. Well, these 2 guys they got, obviously, were top guys from within the state. And it started off on Saturday with 4-star edge. That's the new popular term for a defensive end. Montague Rames out of Sumter. Phil, the Gamecocks need some pass rushers, right?
Yeah, we got to keep that D-line going. That's one of the things that definitely an emphasis for this year as well. Going to have to get pass rush.
Yeah, definitely, because you're looking at Strawn probably going pro. Burks probably going pro. You have Terrell Dawkins there. Gilbert Edmonds, a player I really like. Tyreek Johnson's a player I think could surprise some people this year. But, when you look at 2023 as a season, not necessarily a recruiting class, it's sort of thin and, you need some young guys behind. So, Rames was a kid from Sumter. I think the Gamecocks should always get players out of Sumter. I don't think that's any sort of big deal for Carolina to sign somebody. It's kind of like Clemson signing guys out of Seneca or Greenville or wherever. You ever been to the beach, Phil, going down 378 towards Sumter? You ever taken that way? I know you and the missus love Myrtle and like me, have been to Ocean Lakes recently, but you ever taken that way, or you always a 95 guy?
No, man, we've gone the long way a couple of times, usually coming home too, just to see something different, because 95, you never know what you're going to get.
No, even though there is a Buc-ee's there now. I don't know if you've ever been to Buc-ee's, man.
No, I have not. I keep hearing good things about it, though, man.
Oh my goodness! I mean, it's like if you take a Bass Pro Shop. If a Bass Pro Shops, like the best QT or Speedway you can find, a Texas barbecue restaurant, and a Cracker Barrel old country store. They all had a baby, right? And then that baby got huge. Like you fed it after midnight or something, it got huge. You can see the Buc-ee's in We're at Calhoun, Georgia from space. Okay. They have like 100 gas pumps and stuff, largest gas station in the world. If they all had a baby and you fed it steroids, that would be Buc-ee's. I even bought a Buc-ee's shirt with a little beaver on it. I was so impressed. But we went to the one in Richmond, Kentucky, coming back from Pigeon Forge up towards Chicago, which, by the way, is not a terrible drive because it breaks up nicely. But we saw it going down, and we were like, we got to go on the way back, and we did. And it was awesome. But that's their old 95 now, for those of you that don't know. Buc-ee's can pay me for advertising. I don't think they need it. But yeah, so that way down, it's not a bad drive from Columbia to Sumter. We've all driven past Shaw Air Force Base. There used to be an old house there. So Sumter is really a place Carolina should do quite well. They've already got O'Donnell Fortune on the roster, and they've done well in Sumter over the years. Rames was a player, though, that initially wasn't all that sold on Carolina. And it's because they've been losing. And some kids really put a focus on, hey, I need them to win a little more. That was the buzz around him. I think NC State actually had the lead for him for a long time. Credit the Gamecocks, credit Sterling Lucas, the new defensive edge coach, outside backers, whatever you want to call it these days, for getting in, building that relationship. Taylor Edwards, South Carolina's director of player personnel, deserves a ton of credit here, along with the entire staff, Shane Beamer, Clayton White, for landing Montague Rames. I think he's a player, Phil, kind of like Cliff Matthews a few years ago. He's reshaped his body, 6'5", 235. He's kind of built like Cliff now. Powerful kid, tough, hard-nosed. I talked to a guy that coaches college football the other day that recruits the state of South Carolina. He said, typical South Carolina defensive lineman. He is going to be a fantastic player at South Carolina. So, I think, Phil, when you're dealing with a guy from Sumter and you want him, and you're the Gamecocks, their mascot at Sumter High School is the Gamecocks. I think it's almost embarrassing if you don't get him. And, Carolina did lose Justice Boone to Florida back during the transition from Sumter, but it looks like they're back on track at that school.
No, that's good. It's good to see, especially stuff coming from the PD and the Low Country. Straight shot right into Columbia makes a lot of sense. And, just from a recruiting perspective, if we look at what is currently the most, successful program right now with Dawn Staley and the women's basketball team, that is exactly what her blueprint was start inside the state and work your way out. It's extremely important. Spurrier did the same thing, and it's time for Beamer. I'm glad to see him doing the same thing.
Exactly, and that's Staley, all of a sudden, you had an uptick in talent, just like Spurrier. And then unlike Spurrier, she's built on it. And now they go everywhere in the country and get players. Spurrier, not necessarily, but hey, Spurrier outside of quarterbacks. And I'll tell this story real quick. Rex Grossman was from Bloomington, Indiana. And he stops by Florida on a visit, right? And he's like, oh, shoot, tell him we don't recruit Indiana. And then they're like, well, Coach, watch his film. He's like, well, shoot, tell him to come on in the office. You want to be a Gator? So Spurrier, philosophically, South Carolina really, and you can ask people that were on that staff, he didn't like it when they'd recruit outside of Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. I mean, G.A. Mangus did good work in the Northeast, but Spurrier's is kind of like, oh, shoot, plenty of players here, And Muschamp, surprisingly enough, to me, kind of stayed in that 4-state range as well. The difference is I thought Muschamp's staff did a great job in Georgia in terms of not taking everybody from that state, really being selective, but getting some outstanding players who are still on the team to this day. Beamer has cast a very wide net, though, already. But like you said, Phil, it starts in the state. South Carolina, in the sport of football, to build a winner here, you have to recruit well within the state, no matter what the other schools are doing. And unfortunately, the talent pool here, whereas when I was covering it nationally for Rivals back class of 06-ish, 07-ish, the mid-2000s, you had 15, 16 FBS level, Power 5 level guys. Well, now that number is kind of like 6 to 8, and then some of them are kind of fringe, and I don't know what's happened. That's a great mystery to me. I get a lot of questions from the I Help Consulting mailbag about it with different philosophies and theories on it. But So Montague Grames was first. Okay, so Big Tree and Carmelo put their decisions off, right? And then Jaden Robinson, a 4-star commit from Lake City, Florida, has visited Florida twice. Okay, Cameron Upshaw, also from Northern Florida, 3-star DB, visits Florida with him. He decommits, right? And I'll talk about that here in a second. It's kind of crazy, but he decommits. Everybody's freaked out because they're like, "Oh, we're only getting 1 of 4." Because of course, at that point, it's like watching a ball game and you get behind 10-0 early, and you're like, all hope is lost. I have a friend like that. I used to watch Carolina games with when I lived in Greenville. Pretty negative person, but that Carolina get behind 10-7 or only be up 10-7. Oh, we've lost this game. We've lost it. Just lost it. Here, surrender the white flag. And so on the message boards, it was kind of like that. Hey, we're going 1 for 4. Oh man, and I think on Saturdays people like to have a few beers or whatever, get on the message board and just kind of go off, on things. I got called out, I got called out. Hell, we all got called out. Like, hold on, guys. So Marquis Anderson had a very unique way of announcing there in Spartanburg. He picked the pancake syrup.
Yeah, the syrup bottle.
The syrup, yeah, it was awesome. His family owns a food truck and all that. Highest rated guy in the class. I think highest rated high school guy, like you said, that Shane Beamer's gotten since he's been at South Carolina. Yeah, totally true. Offers from Clemson and North Carolina and everywhere else. His Final Four had LSU and Clemson in it, but I honestly think it was North Carolina, South Carolina battle. And Tar Heels really made a good push at the end, but the Gamecocks got him. Got the right syrup bottle. And by that point, when he committed on Sunday afternoon, I'm sitting at a gas station watching it on Instagram, which was amazing because it just got delayed and I didn't have any sound. And I'm like, please, and somebody else is talking. And I'm like, oh man, I'm sure it was beautiful, whatever they were saying. But so finally I was relieved because I didn't want the board to melt down again. And you don't want to lose an in-state kid to North Carolina. I mean, my philosophy on in-state's this. It's like Clemson's going to get their share, okay? Every few cycles, you're going to lose one to Georgia. That happens. There's going to be kids that cross the border and go to Georgia. There's Georgia fans in the state of South Carolina. But North Carolina, Florida, Tennessee, if you can possibly help it, Florida State, I'll throw in there. The schools that used to routinely recruit the state, if they start coming back and getting guys, then that's an alarm. That's when I get worried about recruiting. And so getting him was big. They snapped. I mean, the last kid they got from Dorman was Michael Belcher. He never played. He was he committed to Holtz in Holtz's last year. And then was the first class technically under Spurrier. Before that is a guy named Hart Turner, who was a tight end. Terry Wilburn was a Dorman kid that went to Carolina. But, most of those kids go to Clemson, and most of them work out, even if they're not highly rated. And then schools like Stanford and North Carolina previously have come into Dorman and gotten guys. We both know Dorman because we're from the upstate, but it's been a struggle to go up I-26 and recruit that school there on the highway for the Gamecocks, but they finally broke through, and hats off to them. So people were happy. And by that time, Phil, I'm going to talk about Big Tree. Do you know how to pronounce his first name? I'm not even going to try it.
I'm going to call it Olawatosin.
Olawatosin.
And I know I'm doing it better than Todd Ellis will, so I'm all right.
Oh, Big Tree. Oh, big. Yeah. Oh, man. He's to the 71 years old.
Bubba, Big Tree.
Big Tree. And honestly, we say that, but, I'm to the point with Todd. I used to be a little critical, of Todd, and I'm not anymore. I think it's awesome that he does what he does because it makes us all entertain and we laugh with him, not at him anymore. And, I'm just glad that he's South Carolina's play-by-play guy. Play-by-play's changed a lot. We all wish Larry Munson and Bob Fulton and those guys would come back, but it's just every game's on TV now, so you want a little entertainment. But anyway, so Babalade. And I think I'm saying Babalade right. I hope so. Big Tree. So when he puts off his decision, Carmelo puts off his decision. It's Friday night. The meltdown's starting to brew, right? On the message board.
You can just like, oh God, yeah. Oh, it's over.
It's over. It's over. He's visiting Maryland, and I think people kind of have a little bit of a short memory with Jayshawn Barham last year, who looked like Maryland. Then it was Carolina, and then he signed with Maryland. And he was from Baltimore, St. Francis. Babalade's from DeMatha, which is kind of closer to DC, not Baltimore, but and it's where Marshawn Lloyd went to school. But
that's what I'm about to say. Yeah, at least we got some connections there.
Yeah, there are, and so lo and behold, he shows up to the cookout Friday night, and so people are like, oh, big tree, everybody's celebrating. It has to be a good sign, has to be. And it was. And he got some questions answered. And Steve Wiltfong from 24/7 Sports put in a crystal ball. I'll remind everyone that there is a welcome home Shane Beamer tweeted out that has not been fulfilled yet. I think fulfillment, kind of like Amazon, with the missing welcome homes, we'll just start calling that fulfillment, right? Babalade, I think, as soon as he gets his commitment video done, barring something crazy. Now, everybody remembers Jayshawn Barham. Barring something crazy, he should be a Gamecock. And Phil, you start looking at it, right? I can't remember from the high school ranks this many guys in the offensive line that were this highly regarded. I mean, you throw Babalade in, that's 3-4 stars. Jatavius Shivers also committed this weekend. Going to talk about him. And then this JUCO kid, Isaiah Jada from Snow College in Utah, a native of San Diego, went to the same high school Reggie Bush did, right? Yeah. You look at his JUCO film, he's come a million miles. You throw Babalade in there, and then you got some other guys you're chasing. I can't remember on paper, and that means star ratings, an O-line class like this at South Carolina. And then you look at 2024, and you got two studs in Pringle and Thompson, and then a third stud named Franks at Greenville High in state for next year.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I think Franks would be a good pickup, especially coming out of Greenville. It'd be good to see some upcountry folks go down.
Yeah. Clemson's pretty much. Yeah, Clemson's pretty much owned it, dude. But they, South Carolina's in on Mazio Bennett, the receiver from Greenville High for 2024, and I used to live right in the parking lot of Serene Stadium, if you remember correctly.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know Greenville didn't have this many players when I was able to just walk over to the game, out of my backyard. But hats off to hats off to that program. They've done extremely well. So
I plan on getting to a couple of Greenville games just to see Mazio because this film looks funny.
Yeah, he looks like a lot of fun. I mean, I remember Corey Lambert and Noah Whiteside came out of Greenville, but it hasn't been like this where there's 3-4 guys every single year. So hats off to the Red Raiders. I know our friends over on Augusta Road will be happy. That area of Greenville. Oh, yeah. Oh my, Carruthers, we're winning at football again. Aren't we? Oh, yeah. Oh, hey, sir. See, But anyway, so that's good for that. In terms of Greenville High. So, but Phil, you start looking at this O-line class, you throw Babalade in, and oh boy, I mean that's a heck of a class. And then you look at what's coming next cycle too.
Yep, that's exactly it. It's not want for talent, that's for sure. Typically you see 3 stars come in there and then rely on the development just to try to get them where they are. But looks like we're making some good momentum here on the O-line, which, hey, you win it in the trenches, man. That's where you got to have it.
Yeah, you got to have players. And, and I think, too, you look at the NFL, a lot of 3-star offensive linemen develop into first rounders and a lot of 5 stars bust. But, what I look for is base skill set. And like Jatavius Shivers, who I'm going to talk about now, that's a guy that, the folks I've talked to at Vandy that had him committed and around the Southeast, they're like, not a first-year guy, not a first-year starter, but from years 2 and 3 on, he's got the skill set. to really be something. He's massive. He's 6'7", 295. Yeah, dude. From a little place called Villa Rica, Georgia, and that's for those of you that don't know, that's out I-20 between, gosh, the airport's off 85, so it's not that. But you get through Atlanta, you keep going down I-20 like you're going to Birmingham, Villa Rica, Carrollton, Cedartown, all that's right there. That's previously been kind of a black hole for the Gamecocks recruiting wise. In the state of Georgia, the Gamecocks have kind of hit other pockets, but I think, there's some ballers over there, dude. Nick Chubb came from that section of Georgia, so I'll take all you can get. And that's another big. Shivers is a pickup that I don't think people need to sleep on. Maybe not for next year or whatever, but for down the road. Because of the athleticism. So all right. So then everybody's happy because it's 3 for 4, right? And
Mm-hmm. Well, what about the other one, Carmelo Taylor, when he decided to put his date back? Is that
he's a little
making another video?
I wish I could say it was a video, and remind me to talk about Upshaw here in a second too. I wish I could say it was about a video, but it's he visited Virginia Tech. He's from Roanoke, right? Now Roanoke, I'll be honest, it doesn't put out a lot of talent. I mean, there's other parts of Virginia, Northern Virginia near D.C., the 757, Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach area, Richmond, all more talent laden than Roanoke, right? So when there's a kid from Southwest Virginia that's good, Virginia Tech usually takes it, and sneakily does so at times. They'll just get a kid and they're like, oh, he's a local kid from Blacksburg. Like, good God, where'd you get him? Well, he's from right here. That's kind of one of their secret things, but he's a 10.5, 600 meter guy. He speed. Somebody got on me for saying speed is something you can't coach, and like, oh yes, you can coach it, but you can't teach it. I'm like, coaching is teaching, my man. But anyway. He's got stuff you can't coach, which is speed, and Carolina likes him, 4-star guy. But that late visit to Virginia Tech and then putting off your decision, it's kind of like, maybe he wants to stay close to home. Change of heart. There's tons of reasons why guys want to stay close to home. And then again, which also shows you that the uprising on the message board and the panic over not going 4 for 4 this weekend was a little unfounded. You check in. Carolina's still right there in the lead. He just has some things he wants to think about. The Gamecocks are still the team to beat, And I kind of thought about it like this, Phil. If you look at Carmelo Taylor's recruitment, Penn State and Carolina have been the top 2. Virginia Tech's never really been up there for him. So it's not like they've been the home team with this big lead on the guy. Keep in mind, they have a new staff this year up there too that's kind of feeling its ways. Frank Beamer's not there, neither is Fuente. Bud Foster's not there, So the folks that knew how to recruit there are not there, and so you got this new group. Now Brent Pry does have some previous Hokie connections, but because the Hokies were not number 1, that still makes me think that if Taylor makes a decision between now and mid-September, I think the Gamecocks will still get him. The problem becomes if it keeps going and going and going and going, that's when that home team can start really getting him over there. Quick drive. Roanoke's only like 40 minutes from Blacksburg, if that. Hokey, high tech, inner Sandman. That ends up kind of getting in your blood a little bit. And I've seen it with Carolina recruits. We mentioned Cliff Matthews. I think at some point, Cliff had Carolina 3rd behind Georgia, and I think Clemson early. Then Carolina took over Clemson, and then they eventually topped Georgia for him, and he was a home state kid too. So just from what I've seen, I think the Gamecocks need to get him on in the boat, and then it becomes hard to flip. I mean, flipping is still a hard deal in modern college football. But I love him. I'm probably higher on Carmelo Taylor than maybe even the Gamecock coaching staff is, just because I think, like I said, that speed is so beneficial. And I'm tired of watching slow receivers, man. Come on. It's like, you look the last couple of years, bless Josh Van, and some of these other guys. And I think Carolina at receiver this year is going to be a lot faster. Of course, we're going to preview the entire season and talk about the games and all that as we move forward. So I think they're still in with Carmelo Taylor. Jaden Robinson, everybody thought he was going to flip. He didn't. I'm still not convinced he won't, but he's hanging in there. So, and that's the 4-star linebacker from Lake City, Columbia, that Florida offered. South Carolina's getting these kids, Phil, out of other teams' backyards. Lake City, Florida is just right next to Gainesville. Mm-hmm. You got to go beat the Gators in Lake City and the Hokies in Roanoke. I mean, come on, Maryland and Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's and those little, I hate to see Napier keep putting up the little smiley faces with the shades on. I get sick every time I see that nowadays. I'm like,
I mean, this Napier thing is going to be interesting. I mean, look, he's recruiting. They got some good recruits. Don't get me wrong. They have a collective. By the way, everybody go to CarolinaRise.com if you want to join the Gamecock Collective. They have a collective that's got millions of dollars right now. It's Florida. They're recruiting really well in state, which is what they should do. But I know Gamecock fans, because of Billy's connections to the state and because he was a finalist for the job when Beamer got it. I think a lot of Gamecock fans, there's a lot of comparing going on. And then, I think Florida fans aren't too happy about the loss they took last year. No. And so there's been some chirping going back and forth with it, and so, I don't know if they'll hold on to Robinson or not. Now, Cameron Upshaw, right? Okay, so this, Phil, is weird, right? So I have some connections at FSU and some connections at the high school. So I get after he decommitted, I kind of thought like everybody else. I was like, well, Florida, because Upshaw and Robinson are buddies. I was like, well, Florida's trying to do a 2-for-1 and swipe both these guys. But then I was told the Gamecocks parted ways, which is nice, which means they, it's a nice way of saying the school moved on or both parties decided to move on. Parting of ways is a nice way to put things, right? Mm-hmm. Well, then I checked with Carolina sources, and it's like, or contacts. I don't like the word sources. I like to use the word contacts. Sources say. Yeah, I'm like, in my business, you'll read these things, and it's like they use the word sources like 17 times. My buddy John Whittle, that works with us on the BigSpur.com, got me off of saying sources. But so some contacts said that. But then Carolina contacts were like, yeah, it's a long story. Well, then you read an interview with Upshaw where he goes, I wanted to do it the right way. I want to have a big announcement week 3. I'm probably still going to commit to South Carolina. I just want to do it the right way. Okay, so I have never seen in 17 years of covered recruiting a kid with that offer list. And he doesn't have a lot of offers. I mean, this was kind of what we call an evaluation by Torian Gray and Clayton White in the defensive backfield. And I trust Torian Gray, to make those. Right. Oh my God, I mean, it's fine with me. I will say down in the Big Bend area of Florida, opinions are mixed on his ultimate ability, but that's fine. Well, there's not a lot of committable offers out there. You check with the Gators, and they're not going to offer it. They're not going to take it. FSU's offer was never committable. So I've never seen a kid with like limited offers committed to a Power 5 school decommit just to have an announcement and then come back in the fold. Just to have an announcement, it's just like, it's like getting engaged and then breaking the engagement off so you can repropose at a different time
on a live stream.
On a live stream, baby. Yeah. I recently got engaged, so I know there's no going back with that. Right? There's no like, really wish some of my friends were there. So I'm gonna take the ring back, and then I will give it to you, maybe.
Yeah, at a later date.
At a later date.
Yeah, at a later date.
Where we can have a bigger party, right? So
but that's funny about his socials is like he's still putting up, the rooster pictures. Is like, dude, what are you doing?
so that may be the long story. I mean, this staff, under Shane Beamer is sort of hip, and they like to have fun too. So maybe it's just a fun thing. I don't know. I've still not got a straight answer. Which if they have dropped him, that's not rare because nobody wants to come out and say, we don't want the kid anymore. But we'll just have to see what happens with Cameron Upshaw. I think that, I believe that he'll probably have a big announcement and get back in the fold, because in this business, there's a first time for everything. So, so that's all that. But anyway, all right, folks, just wanted to kind of have a little short episode today, get this archive, get you familiar with Phil. This is not the launch. The launch will come Thursday, 2 hours, starting at 11 a.m. Practice is kicking up. Going to have some guests. It's not just going to be, the two biggest complaints about the podcast was doing a solo feel was, number one, I needed a co-host. Well, mission accomplished. Number two, I didn't do it frequently enough. Well, mission accomplished. And then number three, some people wanted me to have some guests. Guests, to me are good with a 2 hour format, not necessarily a one. But we got you some guests. We've got, I'm looking at a list of guests. There's going to be a lot of Gamecock oriented guests, but then there's also going to be folks for a 2 hour show focused on one program. You do have to kind of expand it a little bit. So we're going to talk a lot of SEC, ACC, any team that quote unquote touches Carolina. That's fair game discussion wise. I'm sure we'll have the chat line up rocking and rolling for you. Lance Player has already come in along with Alex Wood, one of our sponsors, Meredith Taylor, right there. They're already in. They're already in. So look at this. So Lance goes, and I'll read this, Phil. I'll go ahead and get on it. I'll read Lance's. Lance has okay. So Lance has three. So I'll go with the first one, verse 2, and then you go with the third one because we like Lance. All right, Lance Player. He says Rames does not look 235. He looks about 250. He does, and he also, I think at one point was pushing 265. And what I was told was he's leaned down, and it does look like a heavier 235, but it's all muscle. Because early on, Phil, I thought Rames could grow into an inside guy, but that is not the case.
No.
Yeah, that is not the case now when you look at him. He says Upshaw's coming back soon. We will see. Nothing would surprise me. But I'll just say this: if he does what he says he's going to do, and that goes through, and I've never seen anything like it. I've just never ever seen anything like it, and that's nothing against the kid. I know that Carolina liked his length in the defensive backfield, 6'2.5" guy. Developmental guy, obviously, but a guy that can play. All right, so what else does Player Lance have for us here?
All right, Lance, look at it. What, Taylor could be another Juju early? I think that's, when you compare in speed, that's exactly what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and if we're going to be versatile with our offensive players, let's hope we use them the right way. We all remember the quarterback Jordan Burks last year. So that's right.
Yeah, I'm gonna get off. That play, I probably complained about that play over and over and over again. I'm just gonna quit. I'm not gonna complain about it because I do think guys like nobody's really talking about Juju McDowell. I think the kid has a chance to be an all SEC type kick returner if he gets enough kickoffs, because it seemed like last year they all went in the dang end zone,
Right.
I think with him and this walk-on transfer they got from the Ivy League, actually, Dante Miller, you're talking about that wide zone play like they ran to him and they kept hitting him in the flat in the bowl game. I think those are perfect plays for Juju and a Dante Miller or whoever, that kind of all-purpose back spot. So that's all that. So I think that it's going to be something to really watch is player usage this year. So
definitely. It's like, you got a toy box full of, the best and brightest that we've seen in a long time here. And it's just like, you got to put the right pieces together at the right time.
You're right. Yeah, that's a great point, Phil, because I was looking at the offensive personnel the other day, and I'm like, my goodness, you've got, some traditional style running backs. You got some all-purpose backs. You got a tight end and Jaheim Bell that you can hand the ball to, throw it to. He can be a wide receiver. He's going to be a wide back, You got Antoine Juice Wells. You got Corey Rucker coming in, joining Josh Vance. Amari and Brown and Xavier Legette have gotten better. Austin Stogner is kind of Stogner reminds me, Phil, those tight ends Notre Dame has had over the years, a big 6'6" guy that runs like a receiver. So we'll see. We'll see kind of what happens with all that. But yeah, okay. So those of you that found the chat line, we're going to go ahead and let iHelp Consulting handle the chat line too. And we've got the iHelp Consulting mailbag, which is pretty full. And we'll get to those now. For those of you that are wondering, we won't have like a mailbag segment per se, where it's going to be throughout the show. So the chat line here, the iHelp Consulting chat line, and until we get another sponsor for it, and then the iHelp Consulting mailbag will remain. But all right, Phil. Well, we'll get off and archive this, and certainly. People got to see our smiling face. I'm probably gonna get a haircut before we do it for real, or wear a visor or something. But shave maybe, But glad people tuned in right now and enjoyed. Those of you that found your way to the chat line, and certainly looking forward to launching Inside the Gamecocks, the show, 11 a.m. Eastern on Thursday.
And we're not going to say we may not be back tomorrow with a little more just to test out some other stuff. So we're looking forward to spending some time with y'all.
Exactly. All right, for Phil Mullinax, this is JC Shurburtt. This has been the dress rehearsal #1 of Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Hope to see all you guys, if not tomorrow-ish, Thursday, 11 on streaming on, where we streamed on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube today.
All 3 today. Hopefully they're all coming through.
Money. All right, guys. So we'll hit you guys up later, and certainly looking forward to all of you joining us right here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show.